Imagine a military with the capability of launching a strike with just a person's thought. It sounds like science fiction, but it's becoming a reality. That's because Beijing is spending billions of dollars every year on neuroscience that could lead to weaponization of the human brain. NTD's Kevin Hogan spoke with Brandon Weichert. He is an author and geopolitical analyst. He describes the technology and outlines some of the risks when it's used by an oppressive regime.
Brain control interfaces are a new technology that basically allows for the integration of man and machine in a seamless, effective way, much better than the way we do it with sort of the tactile, iPhone hitting a button or, controlling a drone from far away with the way we do it now. In this case, the brain will actually have a direct linkage into the machine. And obviously that has some great benefits for people who are ill with who are paraplegic, that could help them, be able to walk possibly at some point using this technology. But obviously there's a military application as well. And that military application is what China's really focused on. Already in India, we see China deploying 80 new robots that are designed to augment the Chinese forces currently challenging India for control of the Tibetan Plateau. This is a proof of concept, and ultimately what the goal is to be able to develop those brain control interfaces to such a degree that China can then start having soldiers with brain control devices controlling swarms of drones, swarms of land warriors. And it sounds science fiction, but this is where we are.
The Chinese regime is totalitarian, genocidal, according to the U.S. State Department,
Absolutely.
and territorially aggressive, which you alluded to. Just ask some of its neighbors, like India or Taiwan. What are the risks of the CCP developing brain control weaponry?
Well, basically, on the military side, as I said, you have that sort of seamless integration of man and machine, which augments their warfighting capability, makes them quicker, makes them stronger. You can imagine sort of like eventually an Iron Man type suit where the Chinese soldier is integrated into that suit. So just imagine the capabilities that might give. And this is something the Chinese are talking about doing. Obviously, it's in the infancy right now. But on the civilian side, we've already seen China, and I hate to use the Nazi term, but in this case it applies. China, like the Nazis of old, is experimenting on political prisoners. They're doing biological experimentation. They're taking DNA of the Uyghurs in concentration camps to create specific genetic weapons. Inevitably, we could see or foresee this brain control interface being applied to people who are political prisoners, having it inserted into the base of their skull, allowing for 24/7 instantaneous monitoring and possibly control of a political prisoner by the CCP minders. This is a very revolutionary technology. If in the wrong hands, it could destroy the one thing that separates humanity from the animals, and that's our free will.
Beijing is imposing zero-COVID policies in more cities, including industrial hub Tianjin. Restrictions are hitting factories hard and making supply chain disruptions worse. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the details.
With cases of the CCP virus flaring up across China, the Chinese regime is imposing zero-tolerance strategies and citywide testing to try to contain the virus.
The longer it keeps doing this top-down approach, the bigger impact, the bigger dent on growth numbers it's going to have, and on supply chain disruptions as well.
Big companies, including Samsung, Volkswagen, Nike, and Adidas, are suffering halts to production. Toyota said operations at its joint venture factory in Tianjin had been suspended because of mass testing imposed across the city. About 14 million residents were tested after 2 cases of the Omicron variant were detected. But Beijing's policies are affecting many more across supply chains. Brian Freed, CEO of LED lighting company Rapid Grow, told NTD what his business encountered after lockdowns in China.
Components that we used to purchase from China that had an average lead time of 4 weeks have an average lead time now of 30 weeks. And so that's a catastrophic increase in the amount of time required.
Freed says with a domino effect, it will cause some companies to eventually go out of business.
We've already seen consolidation in some of our markets where larger companies are swallowing up smaller ones simply because there's no growth opportunities due to these restrictions.
Professor Juscelino Colares of Case Western Reserve University thinks it's highly questionable that the Chinese Communist Party can continue playing this top-down approach under the threat of enormous economic costs and the Olympics coming.
China has spent billions of dollars trying to catch up to the world's most advanced chip makers. But recently, some Chinese startups announced failure. Let's take a look at possible reasons they aren't succeeding.
China's dream of competing with chip makers TSMC and Samsung has failed recently. Officials injected hundreds of millions of dollars to support two semiconductor projects in Wuhan and Jinan, but neither ever commercially built any chips.
If we say oil is the industrial blood of a country, chips are the industrial brains. So the chip manufacturing technologies represent countries' overall scientific and technological strength.
China affairs analyst Jingyuan Tang says making more semiconductors is a vital priority for China because China has the greatest chip demand in the world.
China now makes nearly 1.2 billion mobile phones and 350 million computers a year, which drives 1/3 of the global demand for semiconductors. But China's self-sufficiency rate from domestic chips is only less than 30%. It especially lacks high-end chips.
But based on company statements and local government documents, over the past 3 years, at least 6 chip-building projects in China, including the ones in Wuhan and Jinan, have failed. What's holding them back? Tang says one reason is that China's industrial base is weak and lacks high-end chip-making experts.
The CCP's economic model for many years has always been seeking quick success and instant benefits. With semiconductors, it requires a long-term and large investment. The CCP did not take it seriously in the early stage. Later, the CCP realized the importance of it and started to try to catch up in a very short time. But without a sound foundation, it's like building a high-rise building on the sand.
He says the second reason is China's political and economic system, which doesn't foster an innovative environment.
In China, all such high-level strategic projects get state capital investments, which leads to political officials guiding science development, amateurs leading professionals. The negative result is that China cannot effectively innovate.
Tang says chip development is tied to government performance. Therefore, officials are afraid of or even stop innovation when making decisions, because innovation contains risk and responsibility. In contrast, low-risk projects are encouraged eventually, and the whole situation curbs innovation.
And in an effort to keep schools safely open, the White House COVID response team today announced plans to send millions of free test kits to schools. But some lawmakers are raising concerns about importing these tests from China. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more on that.
The White House COVID response team today gave an update on the virus. There's been between a 33 and 47% increase in cases, hospitalizations, and deaths over the past week. But the CDC director noted that most of these deaths are a lag from the Delta variant, since data shows that the Omicron variant is less severe. As of right now, around 98% of cases across the country are from the Omicron variant.
Is that virtually everybody is going to wind up getting exposed and likely get infected.
Death rates are down from Omicron of about 91%.
The team also announced efforts to advance new therapies and acknowledged that schools should stay open.
The president is clear. The nation's schools can and should be open. And we have given state and local leaders the resources to ensure they can be open.
To help keep classes running smoothly, the administration is sending 10 million test kits to schools per month, 5 million lab tests, and 5 million rapid tests. The administration is still working to distribute 500 million tests to Americans' homes. Some of these rapid tests are made in China, including at least 2 widely available antigen tests. This is sparking national security concerns for some. Senator Rick Scott wrote in a letter to the Biden administration asking that 0 tax dollars go to the Chinese communist regime for these tests because, quote, every dollar spent on COVID-19 tests manufactured in communist China goes directly to supporting General Secretary Xi and his genocidal regime. Scott also wants to ensure that our fight against COVID-19 both supports American jobs and holds Communist China accountable for the virus it's unleashed on the American people.
Cooperation is growing among China's neighbors. The Philippines has acquired a new anti-ship missile system purchased from India for nearly $400 million. The deal comes as India works to strengthen its defense ties with the U.S. and its allies. That's as Beijing's military continues to expand in the region, both on land and at sea. The supersonic cruise missiles are made under a joint India-Russia project. The Philippines plans to use them as deterrents, urging foreign ships not to intrude. That's as the country has repeatedly accused China of sending militia boats into its waters in recent years. Beijing has laid claim to nearly all of the South China Sea and expanded its military activities to support that claim, including constructing 7 heavily fortified artificial islands. That's despite international arbitration ruling in 2016 that Beijing's claims have no legal basis. Disputes over the South China Sea involve China and 6 other nations. Besides the Philippines, the debate also includes Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan.